coming this evening. My name is Karen Stoltz, and we're delighted that you're all here to be a part of our very own democracy in action. This is a gathering of people who are interested in understanding the positions of the people who are running for town board and town justice. They will be in the election on November 5th, right? November 5th. Yep. Is somebody from UNITE going to talk about early voting, or?
I do. I have a little bit of a printout of that early voting, and it can work as a handout. But essentially, there is early voting between Saturday, October 26th, and Sunday, November 3rd, at the Essex County Public Safety Building in Lewis.
This is the first year we've ever had early voting in New York State. They're still working out the kinks, and the only early voting location is at the safety building in Lewis, the county jail.
So I have some copies of this. What I'll do is I'll leave these maybe just right up here, and people can get them if they want them. It's just details and then some logistical Q&A and stuff just about the process. So there those are.
There's also absentee voting, so if you aren't going to be in town on November 5th, we encourage you to get an absentee ballot. If you do need help getting one, we'll be glad to help you out. So you can come see me or anybody else from UNITE. So the way it's going to work this evening is we'll give each of the candidates 1 to 2 minutes to introduce themselves and talk about their position here in the town, and then the second time around I will ask the first question. So I'll ask the same question of each of them, and after that we'll open it up to the floor. So I'll kind of be keeping track of the time so that it doesn't go on too long, and I'll ask you to try and think of ideas, questions based on what their answers are, to ask them questions later on this evening. We expect to go for no later than 8:30. So hang in there. So John Hudson is running for town board, and could you just? Okay, yeah. So Carolyn brings up a good point. You can actually vote for 2 people in this election. So the way our town board works is that we have 4 town board members, and they are on rotating schedules. So 2 people are up for re-election at this time. So on the ballot, you will be voting for 2. Yeah?
For town justice, it's one.
There's just 1. Yeah. So then we also
I know
have
you
the
like
town,
to vote for both of us, but
and for town, we also have the only other people that are contenders in this next election is for town justice, and there's only 1 position available. We already have 1 that also rotates, so we have 1 town justice that's not up for re-election at this time. Anything else? Okay, so John, just tell us a little about yourself.
Okay. Hi, my name is John Hudson. I'm running for town council. I would like to thank you all for coming here tonight. I would also like to thank the Keene Fire Department for hosting this event. And I would like to thank the people of UNITE the North Country for putting this all together for us. So I'm going to read a little something because it's easier to get it straight here. The reason I'm running for town council is because I believe the town deserves a representative who will listen to the concerns of for all betterment of our town, both present and future, and be willing to take action to move us all in the right direction. I feel my previous experience as a code enforcement officer for the town of Keene for 5 years, including during Hurricane Irene in 2011, and a FEMA inspector helping the town recover after the earthquake of 2002, gives me a special insight on the problems that need solutions in this town. And did I mention that I was a resident here for over 60 years? I see several challenges in the near future, such as safe and convenient parking, the lack of affordable and permanent housing, the sustainability of our fire departments and school, taxes that seem like they're out of control, and several other issues. Now I'm asking you for your help by voting for me so I can get to work on these and solve these serious and pressing challenges. Thank you.
Jerry Smith?
I'm Jerry Smith, and I are on the board now, and I would like to be re-elected. I was born and raised here, stayed here, worked at Keene Central School, and I like to see more things happen. John said most of them that we did, the town board did quite a bit to doing the bridges, the Irene, doing Gulf Brook, and all them other things. Thank you.
David Davis?
If you don't know me, I'm Dave Dale. I'm a resident here in town. I'm a Keene Central School graduate. I moved away for about 10 years, moved back here, started a business, started a family. I recently sold my business, and so I have more time to give to the town. I think it's important that if you're here in the community, you have kids in the school, that you contribute to a place that you care deeply about. So I'm here asking for your vote for town council, and I appreciate everybody here that's running. Thank you all for showing up, and thank you all for running.
I'm Jennifer Gregory Whitney. I grew up in Keene. I run a small excavation with a business with my husband, Ned Whitney, and I raised my children in this community. Lauren and Avery are in 2nd and 5th grade at Keene Central School. I am also a graduate of Keene Central. I have knowledge of real estate and the market to bring insight to the Airbnb and other challenges that face our small community in tourist areas like Keene. I have 10 years of real estate practice at Adirondack Realty and Kathy Gagnon and Associates. I have knowledge of running a business with an associate's degree in business management, and my husband Ned and I employ local people while working closely with full and part-time residents as well as other businesses in this small town. I know those challenges that business owners are facing. I have frontline experience serving the community in key areas that improve the quality of life for residents. Fire protection. I have been an honorary member for the Keene Fire Department for 13 years. I am the founder and the president of the Keene Fire Department Auxiliary. I have been the secretary and treasurer of the department and currently the secretary and treasurer for the district, working closely with the chief and the commissioners on the budget and money allocations. I've been a part of the youth programming. I have been on the Keene Youth Commission board for 11 years, serving as the president for part of that time, and also helping out with education and working at Keene Central School as a substitute, and also a member of the parent-teacher committee. I am committed to continuing to serve the community and listen and learn about the needs of the residents. While I have no council level experience yet, I am a problem solver and a team player, and I come to the table willing to work hard and serve you.
Thank you. Henrietta Jordan?
Yes, hi, and I echo John's thanks to all of you and to the organizations that make tonight possible. I have a letter that I wrote explaining why I'm running and what the town court does that will, sort of explain things more fully than I can in the time we have tonight. But I would like to highlight a few things. First of all, a lot of us don't really understand what the town justice court does. It's a court of limited jurisdiction, which means that it doesn't have all of the cases that the county court does. It primarily deals with motor vehicle violations, other traffic offenses, small claims court, landlord tenant. It can take misdemeanor cases, but most of those are heard, as I understand it, in the county court. And it's some arraigning defendants who might be tried in the county courts. What town justices have to do is they have to hear cases, they have to account for the court's revenue and expenses, and the court system, New York court system is very particular about how that is done. They have to administer the record keeping because the town court has no clerk. And they also have to report to the town board and to the state court system. And these are skills that I believe, or these are tasks that I believe I have the skills to do. I served as an executive director of 3 statewide nonprofit organizations. I served in the Vermont legislature for 2 terms. And lately I've been working here in New York State for the last almost 20 years, helping land trust with various challenges, including accounting, record keeping, and administration. What I really hope I can do for the town court is to improve our technology. We desperately need a new computer system. We are eligible for grants of up to $30,000 from JCAP, the Judicial Court Assistance Program. I write grants, and I'm good at it. Record keeping. We need to make sure that our records are kept in a way that they can be accessed easily, not just the digital one, but the paper ones. And there are things that I'm told about our record-keeping system that really could be improved, and I'd like to work on that. Transparency. I believe we should have a web page that's part of our Town of Keene web page for the court that has things like a link to the manual about how to file a small claims court case. How to respond to a motor vehicle violation charge, and how to pay tickets without having to go to court, or I think that kind of information. Yes, people can Google it and they can get to the state court system. But if we should be able to tell our town, the people who need the services of the court in our town, how they can access them.
Thank you, Henrietta. We'll get back to you.
Okay, that's anyway. That's my final thing, which I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Bill Harrell, also for Town Justice.
My name is Bill Harrell. I live on Market Street in Keene Valley, right across from the school. Many of you might know me from my work at McDonough's Hardware, where I've worked for the past 6 years. I hope you know me as someone who's hardworking, reliable, reasonable, fair-minded, calm. At least that's the way I like to think of myself, and some degree of common sense. Before Susan and we're blow-ins. The rest of you are well established here. But Susan and I moved here 9.5 years ago. After I retired, more or less, from my career with a nonprofit organization that served people with disabilities. I started at the bottom and was with them for 28 years, started on the bottom rung, and the final 20 years was as the Director of Human Resources. The organization I worked for had 350 employees in 35 locations scattered over 3 counties. I represented my employer in numerous hearings and administrative proceedings related to unemployment compensation, workers' compensation, human relations and affirmative action type issues. I represented my employer in disputes about work rules and that kind of thing. I also moderated disputes between employees and management. So since I moved up here, I've been employed at Whiteface Mountain by Orta, running a chairlift. That was a blast. I worked for Rivermead Farm for about 2 years. That was hard. I worked again as a human resources director at a resort in Lake Placid at High Peaks Resort. And then after that, I came to the hardware store where I've been for 6 years. I intend to continue to bring deliberative and thoughtful actions as town justice, be balanced, common sense approach to applying our laws and regulations. I'm running for town justice because I want to serve the town of Keene, the people who live here. I promise to work hard, be reliable, reasonable, fair-minded, those are the qualities I would want from my town justice, and I hope you agree.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks, everybody. We'll start with John, and the question that I will ask each of the town board people are, what are your top 3 priorities? Now, I realize you read them from your notes, but I think there were more than 3, and I'd appreciate it if you could just tell us those top 3. And once again, like 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay, my top priority would be what I believe is out of control taxes, land taxes mainly. So I will be working with our new tax collector, not collector, but our new tax assessor that's going to be coming in. The reval will start, we're going to do a reevaluation of the town of Keene this next year. It starts. And so I will work closely with the tax assessor to make sure that it's fair and that sort of thing. Number 2, obviously, will be parking, and not just parking, but we have a lot of traffic coming through our town now. I mean, you all know, it's just insane. So it's safe crossing the roads, stuff like that. So I'll be working closely with that, and we have sidewalks that are in disrepair, so that's all one thing. And then, see, the third thing will be the lack of housing for people to come and live here and put their children in the school and, you know, support the fire departments and all that. We really have a lack of permanent housing. It's all becoming Airbnb. You're all familiar with that. So I'll be looking at that and seeing what we can do, if we need legislation or if we need to reinforce the legislation we already have. And that's basically going to be my top priorities.
Thank you very much. Jerry?
Well, John said some of the ones I was going to mention is the parking, doing a good, I thought maybe the town could take half of Marcy Field and turn it into a large parking lot instead of parking out in the roads and all that. My second one is for senior housing. Like John said, we need more senior housing in not low income, but so families, portable, yeah, for families. And my third one is to improve the Norton Cemetery, because we're running out of space of the cemetery in the Norton. And it's been 20 years since we bought the piece of property, and we haven't done anything, and I would like to do that and trying to improve that. And the fourth one is to put the whole town under one roof of all the buildings that we have and keep everybody into one location.
So do you mean like the fire department?
No, all the, like the town clerk, the justice, and all.
Oh, I see, a physical building.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
okay. Dave, you still get 3, even though Jerry went through.
That's all right, I give Jerry a little bit. So I echo these guys. I agree that parking is an issue, and I have some ideas on how we could do that to benefit the town, into the town's pockets on that. It's a huge issue, and I have some good ideas that I think could really benefit the town on parking, on managing this hiker influx that we have over the summers. I also echo a little bit that there has to be some way that we can get some, I'd like to get people into this school, whether, you know, it's affordable housing. It's also, I think, it comes in at a third thing is internet access. As we all know, we have trouble with it constantly. I spoke with a guy this morning that said, I'm thinking about moving here, I vacation here, and I was actually taking care of the vacation rental where he was. And he said to me, I just can't get internet today. He goes, I had it yesterday, I don't have it today. It's important to get people to this town, and internet is a big part of it. Affordable housing, getting families in Keene Central. You know, I mean, I echo Jerry's thing that we need to get people into this town and to get people into that school, because if we keep diminishing the amount of people there, Jerry can get it all under one roof. They'll all just be at the school. And we don't want that. We want to get people here, so that's a priority for me.
Great, thank you very much. Jennifer?
The first one is I'd like to preserve our sense of community, keep the town safe when all these visitors are coming in with, like John said, the crosswalks, better sidewalks so people can walk on them and not trip and fall in the winter and out skateboarding or whatever. Maybe some upgrades to the pavilion and the community center and the skating rink so families and people visiting can come use those facilities for free and we can continue to enjoy that. I'd also like to take a look at the green infrastructure, maybe put some solar panels on the new salt barn that are there, start catching some rainwater and see the completion of the LED transformation on the telephone poles and make sure that finishes out. I would also like to do what the other guy said about the parking. I was thinking maybe the Holt House could become a visitor center where it's open all the time and people can stop there and see where they should go to visit local businesses, where they can park, maybe a different mountain that they could hike that's not one that everyone is going to. Maybe explore the purchase of a new bus, another one, so we can get people parking at Marcy Field and Jerry's big parking lot, and then traveling out. Maybe charge the hikers a small fee to park their cars if they're not in the parking lot and taking the shuttle.
Great, thank you very much. So now that we've moved to town justices, this is going to be a different question. So the question for you is, how would you change the procedures and how the town justice works? And you did mention a few things, Henrietta, already,
Right.
but if you could just, once again, keep it to 3 things,
Okay.
that would be helpful.
All right. Well, for one thing, the procedures that are used by the town justice court are by and large prescribed by the unified court system, which actually has a manual laying out exactly what needs to happen in a town court. And the intent of that is to make sure that justice is equal everywhere and that people don't get a different standard of justice in Keene than they get in Watertown. So definitely my first priority is to learn that by heart, and then also to take the training. Non-attorney justices are mandated to take a training that really educates you, for all those policies and procedures. I talked about modernizing the technology and record keeping. It's not that anything's wrong or people haven't been doing it right, it's just that we haven't modernized, and we need to do that now. I guess the one thing I really want to do for the town court is I want to make us the best small town court in New York State. I want us to be transparent, I want us to be user-friendly, and I want us to have a reputation for scrupulous fairness and adherence to the law.
I'm sure the hikers and all the people who are getting parking tickets will be.
They may not like getting a parking ticket, but I will make sure that their town court experience is a good one. I will find them with a smile.
Okay. So Bill, once again, 3 things that you would change in the town court system?
Okay. Like Henrietta, I have to become educated also. I'm not going to go in there and rush around and try and change a lot of things until I thoroughly understand the job and understand the procedures. I've started also reading the manual, and it's a really good way to get to sleep at night. Very interesting, but a little dry. I would not change anything until I thoroughly understood the job. The procedures, I don't know if they need to be tightened up, but they need to be understood by citizens. So open communication between the justice and the people in the town, I think, is very important. So I would make that a priority also, to talk about what we do, not the private proceedings or anything, but just in general what happens. Also towards transparency.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So now I'll open it up to the floor, so that people can ask questions. Thank you all for coming, we really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for your discussion. I've been taking notes, so if you need ideas, I'll be glad to help. But does anybody have a question for one or more of these people? Yes.
This would be for all the candidates. I was wondering if you were elected, if you would be willing to put the time and effort and maybe money into keeping the town's website up to date. I get on there once or twice a week, and there's nothing. I didn't know there was a water ban in Keene Valley. I was washing my car. I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on with Piker parking on Market Street. So if the website was up to date, it would be informative for the people. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to put that effort and money into the town website.
Sure.
We'll make this to the town board.
It's a town website.
Yeah.
It'll be a town.
I can start with that if you want to,
Sure.
Jerry.
No, Davey's fine.
You sure? Okay. Yeah, I think that's important. I saw Maggie yesterday, and there was a water meeting last night, Jerry reminded me of. I didn't know about it, because it does need to come up to date. And my wife did the same thing last summer. She was watering flowers in front of the house, and Ryan Hall called me up and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "What?" He said, "There's a water ban on." So I agree with Maggie. There needs to be a more informative town website that is up and running, and who we get to do that. I'm not sure the answer to that, but if I get on the board, I'll explore it.
Can I just put one thing that we're kind of assuming is that the town website is going to be a communication tool between, say, the town officials and the people. Is that the only thing that we could use? Or can you think of other ways besides a town website? Because it does take me.
I think Go ahead.
Right now, they're using Nextdoor Keene on
Yeah.
most things,
But I don't
but
want to go through everybody's problems.
I don't. I agree
I
with
want to
you.
get on the website, read it. You know, the library does both. It's just more like hospital.
So when
So
there was
what
a,
I'll do tomorrow is I'll speak to Joe Pete Wilson about that.
I have, and this is where I'm at now.
I'll speak to him too.
so when there was a water issue, the water person, Ryan Hall, I'm assuming, should have sent out something in everyone's bill saying, hey, we're on a water shortage.
But
Then
he-
they would have known.
He doesn't send the bills.
Well, whoever sends the,
Yeah.
Ellen or,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to address the subject. When I was code enforcement officer, I actually helped Ellen update the website. I do know how to do it, and I would be very willing to be part of that as the town board member. It does need to be addressed all the time on a steady basis, and I would be willing to do that. And I know I've built my lifetime. I know all about websites, and I could certainly make that part of our communication tool. I don't think that should be the only communication tool. I do like Nextdoor Keene, but I also like back in the day we used to use the newspaper. We need to dedicate a certain newspaper also for press releases that we need the town to hear about.
You're talking about a physical piece
A
of paper?
physical piece of paper, yes. I know, the old-fashioned newspaper.
Well, we have the calendar.
But there's a lot of people in this town that don't go on the web, and they don't see that stuff. And there's people, so they don't get Nextdoor Keene or the internet, or the websites. So we need to communicate with them.
it wouldn't hurt having a Facebook page also that's dedicated just to the town of Keene so that visitors and residents alike could maybe hit that avenue also.
But again, that leaves out
Right.
the certain people that
Right.
don't have internet.
But if you base all
Yeah,
post
we need all of it,
offices
we need
and-
all of it.
right.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think it does apply, and I'm sure Bill might want to say something too, but, you know, there really is no information about the town court on the town website. And if we're gonna make it a user-friendly court, we've got to have that. And also make sure.
To those who spoke to the issue of affordable housing, that concerns me a great deal too. And I've asked if I could be on the task force of the strategic planning committee to look into it. I think Carolyn had some new news for me, but there's been lots of plans and lots of discussion, but nothing ever happens. Do you have any insights on what the possibilities might be that I would explore if I get on the task force? but you may know more already than I do.
I have
Can
some
I,
ideas.
can I just rephrase
Sure.
that? So the question is about affordable housing, and just about everybody mentioned that, along with senior housing. So if we could take both questions, I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
You know. Davey?
So I looked at that, affordable housing, it's a tough issue here in Keene. I think you would have to expand at least an area and some open land and make a new section of Hamlet. I don't believe that affordable housing can happen as the town stands right now. I think we would definitely need to expand the Hamlet. And there's several reasons for that. There's years ago, the Ausable Club doubled its membership, practically because they needed money, as everybody else does. So they did this. So when these houses come up for sale in town, several on Market Street in the last 10, 12 years, they're bought up because people that need affordable housing have to go through banks. They have to go through and get approvals, they have to get inspections, and a lot of these homes, I know personally of 5 or 6 within the last year that have been bought up by club members, and no fault of theirs. They want to be here in Keene Valley. It's a pretty place. That's why we all want to be here. So these homes come up, they don't need to go to the bank, and they come in and they write a check for it. It's no slight on the Ausable Club. It's no slight on the people that are selling the homes. It's just a matter of fact. So if we could expand the hamlet, find a large tract of land.
So
Go ahead.
can we just define affordable housing? So is there a certain income group that
So
you're referring
affordable
to?
housing, a lot of people say low income or affordable. There's a difference. Low income is for people that can't meet affordable housing. Affordable housing is if you get to a point where 25% of your income can sustain that house, then that's affordable to you. When your income is below that level, say you get to 50% of your income can afford that house, then you can't afford it. It's not affordable. You get low income. Low income is generally subsidized by the government. And I'm not sure if that's what we're looking for. Affordable is something we're looking for. Affordable doesn't exist in the valley footprint, in the footprint of Keene that we have now, for several reasons. It's a pretty place. People want to retire here. It attracts money. Park Avenue doesn't have affordable housing. It's called Queens in the Bronx. Affordable housing right now for Keene and Keene Valley, unfortunately, is turned into Lewis, Elizabethtown, Ausable Forks. The only way that changes here is if somehow you can work with the APA, get a large tract of land, and redesignate that to the same rules as Hamlet. And if the town, as a local government, supports that, you can put covenants on that and make sure, hey, you can have this housing, you can put 20 houses on this thing, but it has to be to an extent, you know, a primary home, not a secondary home, an income level. You can put whatever covenants you want on it.
Thank you. So
I thought there was that land across from the town hall behind there already.
I can address that too. The land across from the town hall was a bad.
Can we let somebody else?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
sure.
So somebody else want to?
I can address that. For one thing, I think Davey's right, you need more land. But the problem with just designating more land is then you have more people putting more houses up, and it's gonna be for the rich people, you know, and the same thing's gonna happen over and over and over. What I believe, and I'm on the strategic plan steering committee, and we are addressing this problem, and we're gonna recruit people to work on it. But my main idea is that to get affordable housing, you have to have incentives, like tax incentives. Like if they're gonna do short-term rental, well, they're gonna pay a different tax on their property than if they had rented to a family to come in and stay there. So you gotta develop some incentives for them to want to build a place and rent it out to people.
So tax incentives. Yeah,
tax incentives, I think. Well, not just tax incentives. We're exploring the opportunity of other incentives too. So I think that's the way to go. Just to offer land, I think is going to just be repetitive of what we're already doing.
Anyone else care to comment?
Yeah, I've been trying to do senior housing in the trailer court that I own between Adirondack and Market Street. I own 13 lots there. And I've been 20 years trying to get some grant money. And Bernie Webb has been working with me for many years. And the church has too, is they want to put some apartments in. And we just can't find the money. and that's what Davey says, there's no money to do that. We do have the land, but Davey is looking at a big area. I'm looking at small areas.
Well, that's why we gotta create tax incentives and stuff like that, so you can find the money and make it worth it for you to do that.
So senior housing is a possibility, but it's been a long-term project that's been on hold as long as I've lived here, I think.
Right, yes, 20 years I've been
More.
working on it.
Anybody, Jennifer, do you have more something to say? Okay, great. Can we have another question from the audience? Dave?
Yeah, this-
David, did you have a
I'm
question?
all set.
Okay. In the back row, I don't know.
Yeah, so given the conversations that have been happening in Placid and in the area around short-term rentals, where do you stand on working with and managing short-term rentals?
I'd like to take that
So we're
first.
talking like Airbnb things?
Yes.
So the question is about short-term rentals and how our town is going to deal with that?
And I'd like to take that on because right now, every conversation I've had with anybody, they think that they're gonna have to create regulations to regulate these short-term rentals so they sort of go away. But really, truthfully, we have all the regulations in place. It's called New York State Code, and we have local codes. And those codes are fire codes, there are all kinds of safety codes, and they're building codes. And right now, our town has not put any money into our code enforcement officer, so he has very limited time, so he can't go out and check these buildings out to see if they meet code. So we're not only creating Airbnbs to just spring up everywhere, we're also creating a very big hazard for the transient people that come to this town because they're fire traps. And I know one across from my frame shop in Keene here is a 3-story building. In the codes it says any 3-story buildings that are rented to anybody, any of the public, the 3rd story has to have sprinklers in all the bedrooms. Well, they don't have that. It's never been inspected. It never actually went to the planning board and got a building permit, which is required by our local law. And so I feel the planning board is also dropping the ball on this by not requiring these people to come to them and make them meet these regulations we already have. I think that would slow down the boom of Airbnbs because now they're gonna have to spend the money to make it a safe place. It's not gonna end Airbnbs, but it is gonna slow it down.
So you're suggesting that in code enforcement would actually help curtail the increase of Airbnbs. So you're suggesting that it would be better if we had fewer Airbnbs.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that we need safer Airbnbs, and in that process, some of them are gonna go away because they're not gonna have the money to update it to the modern codes. The modern codes are pretty strict.
I think we need to get a list of who currently has Airbnbs and regulate the future ones, that they have enough parking spaces or they have the appropriate septic system in place, and make sure that they're paying their bed tax. Obviously they are if they're on like an Airbnb website, but maybe if they're doing it through another site, they might not be paying those taxes, and we need to check on that and make sure it's happening.
Which what you're saying is codes, well, the
Right.
parking space and all that is written in the codes already.
Right.
Just has to be enforced.
Right.
So as far as the Airbnbs, I don't foresee them as big to deter the housing here in town. Most of the people that are on Airbnbs are homeowners that have them here and use it to offset their taxes. I don't think it deters from housing here in town. Most of these places that are on there, they bought the house, the owners of the house use the house 4 or 5 months of the year, and then they offset their taxes with that. If you are on Airbnb, one, you can get a list of who's in town. All you do is call the county, because if you're on Airbnb, which 90-something% of these houses are, the county has a list of them. And if you're on Airbnb, it goes through their website, and the taxes, bed taxes, are actually paid before you get paid. I happen to have 2 of them, so I know.
Right, so that is
So,
not
so
the actual.
I get John's point to the point of making sure that they're safe. And yeah, I don't want somebody in the 3rd floor of a building getting hurt. But I have Airbnbs here in town that are on a single floor or even a bedroom on a 2nd floor. And I make sure I have a manual in mind, and I think most, to to regulate that. I mean, I think I regulate it as well as anyone because I own it and I don't want anybody to screw it up. So I'm really strict about what goes on. I don't let too many people come in. I don't let parties of 15 come into a 2-bedroom. So I think a lot of the regulation that is there, I think John's right, it's there. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We maybe just need to use the one we already have.
You may make things safe, but others may not.
Right.
Right.
Have they answered your question?
Yeah, I was just looking at their perspective.
Okay, great.
And just to further on that, and I understand in Lake Placid, it's a different animal than what's gone on here in Keene and Keene Valley. I know in Lake Placid, a lot of these houses up on these residential areas have just been bought up by foreign investors that use them just as an Airbnb, and they don't live there. And I would say by and large, 90+% here in town are people that actually live here in town and use, you know, parts of their house or whatever to supplement their income. I don't think we have the same problems that Lake Placid does, and I know they have a serious problem. I don't foresee that happening here. And we have a site plan review law that can regulate that.
Great, thank you. Do we have another question? Annie?
I have a question, that everybody, I think, brought up the parking issue. Anyone who lives here knows it's an issue. Well, and I've heard, you know, people splattering ideas about parking lots and different things, but I didn't hear anything, and I'm curious if any of you are considering, yes, we probably haven't increased our parking since like the '80 Olympics, but also, are any of you really thinking about the impact this increased number is having on the High Peaks region?
Absolutely, yeah.
Can I just restate the question? So the question is, parking is, the lack of parking and the increased traffic is obviously having an impact, not just on the town and the parking lots, but also on the natural resources?
Right, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, would any of you even consider that equally important to look at? I mean,
Absolutely. I think there's a solution to that too.
Can I just let her finish the question?
Sure.
I hiked this weekend, 3 days in a row, in parking lots where I was the only car.
So, yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is, would you look at the possibility of sending people not just to another parking lot, like Baxter or another parking lot in the High Peaks, but literally out of the High Peaks?
So are you talking about a shuttle or something like that?
No, I mean just saying, go hike the Cass Trail, go hike somewhere.
Well,
So-
they're doing that right now
Are they? Okay.
at Marcy Field. If you go to Marcy Field, there's information there and there's people there that will tell you there's other mountains to climb.
There's a way to, and I think to regulate that and deter it without actually, you know, for years I was one of these guys said, you know, 20 years ago, we need a hiking license, and I was pretty firm on that up until recently, and I had a revelation that, you know what, this is a small town, we can regulate the town by just saying, look, you don't, there's too many lobbying groups against the hiking license, so we make people that come to Keene and Keene Valley, you want to stay in our town and go hiking, this is where you have to park, and we charge for the parking. And then you can take a shuttle from there. You don't have to take a shuttle, you can walk from Marcy Field if you want. Jerry's idea of having a bigger parking lot there was my idea as well, as Jennifer has spoke about. Because I think we should quadruple the size of the Marcy Field parking lot, in the back, not on the airstrip, and make people park there. If you want to hike there, this is where you park. Put kiosks there if you have to, and charge people to park their cars there, and then charge them to go. I mean, I would dare say there was probably 500 to 1,000 cars. If you charge them $15 a head, the revenue there would be unbelievable for the summer season. And I would personally like to see the Garden parking lot closed from the day before Memorial Day to the day after Columbus Day. Mandatory they park at Rooster Comb, at the end of the Ausable Club, at Marcy Field, and charge them for parking. One way to deter people is make it more expensive. People come down here every weekend because hiking is free. Parking is free. So the first time that you start to charge people, they might not come 10 weekends in a row. They might come 3 weekends. So that limits the amount of people that are on the mountains at times. It also puts revenue back into the community. It's a win-win situation, and why someone hasn't tried to do that is beyond me.
Bill?
Even though this doesn't pertain to town justice, I think it might be a good idea to also have a shuttle stop at a couple spots along downtown, in front of McDonough's,
Sure.
in front of the Valley Grocery, in front of the Noon Mark, so people can get off and on, get a meal, get back to their car.
Absolutely, I think you could stop at a few places, and it would
also.
warrant it that you would have enough money there, and Keene could do it here. And if the people say, oh, I don't want to do it, I'll hike in Jay, I don't have to do that, well, then that's fine, that limits it. But I think we're a destination spot. It's obvious because of the lack of housing. It's obvious because people are just packing these streets every weekend. And I think Jennifer was right too in saying, you know, yeah, we'll do it in Keene. Maybe we can create some parking here. We can do it all over. And it'll make a lot of money for the town of Keene. It'll limit the people on the mountains. And if they have to get stopped here in town, as she said with the Holt House, or some information center that's there with a piece of paper. While you're here in Keene, don't just go to the top of the mountain, come back down and drive back to Montreal. Try McDonough's Hardware, try to eat at the Valley Grocery, go to the Noon Mark Diner, check out Cedar Run Bakery. You know, give people some options while they're here in town. And that goes back to Maggie Sheldon's thing. Put those things on the town website as well. Hikers, this is what's available to you when you come to Keene. Please don't just stop here, but try to park in these spots. It's going to cost you $10, but we got more to offer than just the hike.
Thank you very
Our
much.
our problem is, with all that, that sounds really good. But
Thanks, Gary.
but the town right now, we're having problems of getting drivers names. And right now, we can't get drivers.
If we're making more money for
Right.
the town, we
But
can
if the
afford to
town-
pay the drivers more money.
So if you had 500 people that spent $15 to park this weekend, that's $7,500, and $10 to get on the bus, you're bringing in 10 grand a weekend, you can probably pay somebody a couple more dollars and you can get some
Pay 'em
drivers.
a higher
Wait,
wage.
we better, we'll
Yeah.
move on from this topic.
Okay.
This is a big topic, for sure.
I just want to say I'm not in favor of telling people they can't come here, they should go somewhere else.
Yeah, okay. Let's face it, that would probably be pretty short-sighted.
Plus, you can't enforce it.
Right, exactly, it's not enforceable.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a common thread of transportation here with this shuttle and jobs and people also living in Austin, Forks and whatnot that can't get here. So has anyone ever considered like transportation between Elizabethtown and Austin, Forks?
We're actually, with
Like
a,
something more significant than a shuttle bus?
There actually
But
is
then you get a
a
driver
there's a
who-
county, there is a county bus.
there is a county, but we've also been talking about running a shuttle between like Sable Forks and Keene and Wilmington. The strategic plan, what is it called? The strategic plan steering committee. We are addressing these things. We're going to appoint committee members that are going to research this stuff, and they're going to come up with ideas and plans, and they're going to come to the steering committee. We're going to discuss this stuff and try to come out with a plan within the next year to 10 years. Well, we're going to start with short-term goals, and then we're going to start with longer-term goals, because you're not going to slow away. So you've got to have some goals set and meet those goals with the overall plan of a 10-year plan. And
People might remember there was a survey that was sent to all the households, and they asked you to rate the issues that you thought were important, and those surveys were tabulated, and the idea was the things you want to have happen in the next 5 years. And that's the strategic planning steering committee
Yeah.
that they're talking about. And they have been meeting, and they're on their way.
There is a county bus that makes a loop from like Sable, Lake Placid, Elizabethtown.
It does, yeah,
Goes around.
and I've actually had a person that lived in Lake Placid that worked here.
Right.
Dave?
So, another topic you mentioned in the beginning was attracting new residents, increasing the school population, that kind of thing. So talk about that for a little while. How do you do that? It's been tried, lots of things have been tried in lots of
Absolutely.
places, so it's not a new idea, but what do you think might work here?
So can I just say something? So we're talking about increasing the population so that we can have more kids in school.
The resident population generally and
The
kids in school.
year-round population?
I would, oh, sorry. I would like to see a full day daycare. I feel like that's a huge problem for parents, is they're not sending their kids to Little Peaks because it's from 8:30 to 11:30. What are they gonna do if they have a full-time job? I had thought that Keene Central School, when they did their new whatever they should have added in a section for the preschool. That's here nor there now, but maybe continuing the hours of Little Peaks so they can go all day. Or maybe not be a school, all Little Peaks, but maybe someone who's watching the children. Because I know Jeanette is like the only gig in town, and she's booked for 3 years. My sister called.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is someone gonna do?
I can answer that.
I think
that's
there needs to
another
be a
hat.
longer daycare.
Yeah.
I think that would bring more families in if there was a longer preschool day.
Is there any other ideas? Are there any other ideas from you
Yeah,
folks?
so I think there's got to be some opportunities because it's almost impossible to live with just one person working. So, you know, the days of having the kids go home with mom all afternoon, it's tough to do. We need some daycare. But to get people here, we also need the internet that I spoke of earlier, because I know families that want to work here. And as systems get better, I mean, even the Valley Grocery or Cedar Run, I know both people personally, and when the internet's down, their cash register doesn't work. It's a problem, yours too. So it's a problem. So better internet, better infrastructure as far as being able to take care of the kids. But the point is, we got to get them here. And to get people with young kids here in town, you know, unless you're millionaires and you can pick the houses up. I mean, if you look around on the...
We're talking about housing now.
Yeah, if you look around to get people here now, go on Zillow and find me 4 houses in the town of Keene under $300,000. It's not there. So affordable housing isn't there. So young folks with 2 kids, it's tough for them to even get started here.
So it always seems to be a chicken and the egg kind of issue to me. It's like, do you bring in childcare and affordable housing and then expect the people to arrive, or the other way around?
You build it and they'll come.
Well, I think John was on to something there with the tax incentives. But I would say that you have to give some large landowner a reason to say, look, you can chop your land up into 20 spots that's not currently in Hamlet and sell 20 things, but don't tax them on 20 initial lots. Wait till the lot's sold. Give them some incentive to do that. Somebody, you know, I've heard people...
Talking about the tax assessor will always bring up problems.
Well, we've got a new one, and maybe get better.
Well, all right. Marjorie?
Yeah, back to hyper parking. I gotta admit that my heart sinks when I think of Marcy Field becoming any more of a parking lot than it is. It's just such a beautiful spot and so much the center of our community. And I'm wondering whether any of you think there's any hope or any possibility, or would you be willing to try to negotiate with the state? I mean, I think that we're trying to carry this thing on our very own shoulders, which is difficult. Can't we get some kind of help from the state in terms of parking?
Yeah, I agree with you.
They've already tried
Can I
to do
just-
that.
So Marjorie Lee asked about parking and having the state come up with a little bit more. From what I understand, the parking lot at Marcy Field is a state parking lot right now, right? Isn't it a decent? No? Okay, it's a town parking lot, okay.
So Martha Lee,
So can I, let's just, Jerry.
Yeah, go ahead. Jerry.
No, they tried that up on Owlstead, and the state wouldn't give them the right to turn that into a parking lot. Because they closed Owlstead on weekends, and they wanted to move it down where the rustic furniture is, and the APA, and they said no.
The APA is different from the state. Yeah.
Well, the state has to mandate too,
Okay.
so that's what happened.
Susie. Yep, Bruce?
What's the load on the town court?
What, how many cases?
How many cases? What
Town justice? I don't actually know. But we do have court, it's open every Monday. I have heard from the incumbent town justice, Deb Whitson, that sometimes nobody shows up, but it really depends on how many tickets have been written, because that's really the largest, volume of cases is traffic tickets. And who decides to actually come to court to pay them. You can pay your traffic ticket online if you want to, and many people do. But one of the things that's a little hard right now is that the answering machine for the court doesn't work very well, I understand. And so when
They
people
still have
call and they leave messages on the answering machine, you know, saying, I need to know about this, or should I come to court, or whatever, the messages are so garbled that nobody can understand them. Which is worse than having no answering machine at all, if you ask me. So, and that's something else that could be covered by a JCAP grant for us to have a functional answering system.
Okay, thank you.
I can't imagine
Bill,
it's
do you
in
have
the
anything to
budget.
say about that? Okay.
It would.
Another question? Susie?
I'm interested if you thought about trying to expand the shuttles and make them electric.
So green infrastructure was something that Jennifer brought up in any case. So does somebody want to, Susie's talking about shuttles and making them more green?
I feel like it could be if we could find a grant to do that for us.
You need to pay for the changeover.
Right, or purchasing a new.
As you know, electric vehicles are you know, costly compared to the gas-powered ones now. So,
To buy.
you know, absolutely can.
Yes.
Plus, I think we only have 2 places to charge them in town that I know of.
Three.
Oh, we have 3 now, okay. Good.
I think we'll just have 2 more questions. So if you're thinking about it, we'll finish up. No? Monique?
I just wonder if anybody's talked to Pete Nelson, who's has an idea about dealing with the traffic of having a shuttle come up from exit 29 for hikers. There would be, and with an internet-based system to tell you where parking's available and not available. So don't go there because you can't park. But he was talking about especially having that be a major parking spot with shuttles coming for day hikers.
I spoke to Pete about that at one point, and my idea, I think, and I echo Martha's concern about having Marcy Field. I don't want to put something down the middle of the airstrip, but back where that parking is now, there's an area that could be screened with trees that wouldn't deter the look of the valley, or Marcy Field. And if they park in exit 29, we can't charge them $15 a day, so I'd rather get them to Marcy Field and get the money out of them.
Anybody else want to address that issue? Great. Oh, last question, Matt?
Just on that same topic, has there been discussion with neighboring towns? I've always kind of here as a picture, a shuttle starting from exit 29, it goes all the way through, probably to Saranac Lake, probably to Corey's Road, you know, basically the sewers. And so that's obviously not something you do next year, but it seems that for this to work, the plan has to be
region-wide.
Region-wide, which then someone had the idea, you could then have the front country sewer at King Phillips Spring, say, let's park at night at the garden, whatever, so you could actually figure out where people are going. So it has that expansion of not just the shuttle being the burden of town Keene, but in the long run, it's got to be the burden of the High Peaks area, all the way over to the sewers, come all the way around to
So the idea is that we would have a region-wide shuttle rather than just a town shuttle.
If you do Essex County, they do have that, but you can't leave the county. Like, the bus goes from Elizabethtown to Saranac Lake. They can just go to Oldies. They can't go no farther because then you go into Franklin County.
And I guess that's part of my question.
And you
Maybe the
can't,
idea is
yes, right.
to have those discussions to kind of get over the current limitations that prevents you from, county border, can't cross it. You know, that's, in order for this to work, it's gotta.
You would have to go independent. The
Well-
town of Keene would have to get their own bus and go wherever they want to.
Well, talking with Joe Pete Wilson quite a bit, he is actually working with the county, he's on the board of supervisors there, and they are trying to address this problem, and it happens actually in other towns other than ours. So county-wide, they are trying to address this problem. You know, that's a long, slow turning process, but we have had discussions.
I think as a hiker, I used to go to the hill, if I was in this scenario, I might just simply say, I'm not gonna come because it sucks.
Right.
Well,
That's
and that-
actually happening
and
right
that
now.
can happen a little bit, and that would at least deter the amount of people that are eroding the top of the trails. So it might not be the worst thing that happens.
And I think the main solution is what Davey said, we're gonna have to charge hikers to park here and hike, unfortunately. Because really, economically, how else can you do it? There's no other way.
It's a good way to do it. It's a win-win for the town. It keeps people from using this, overusing it, which they are now, because it's free. Whenever something's free.
Hunters pay to hunt, fishermen pay to fish.
Sure.
Well, they pay
Might as
to
well.
ride the bus, but they don't
They
pay for
should pay for
parking.
parking.
Right.
The town of
They
Keene
pay
plows
right
that parking lot, right? Town of Keene maintains that parking lot. They should pay to park in it.
Okay, we're gonna cut it off now, and I'm sure there's opportunities
We
to
had
speak
one
with
more
these
question.
people. She was going to comment on this
Okay.
particular topic, and we don't need to do
Don't
that.
keep blaming.
So
That's another night.
thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all.
I'm sure these folks will stick around if you want to discuss more things about it. Thanks very much for coming.
Just a reminder about